Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about a surprisingly successful approach to successful fantasy writing that is new, and it is called. I am naming this because I think I'm the first person to really recognize this. The new Martin Rothfuss start. Okay. So there is a new way to become a successful author that I don't think really has been talked about at the macro level, which I'm going to talk about at the macro level today, which is the Martin Rothfuss start. So let's talk about it. What is the Martin Rothfuss start? So one, it's a way to be a successful fantasy writer. Okay, because this is only, in my opinion, this has only been seen in the fantasy genre so far. It may be possible to do this in another genre, but there's two. We have a data set of two. And that's enough, in my opinion, to say that this can absolutely be repeated. Okay, so let's jump into it. All right. So what is the Martin Rothfuss start? So Patrick Rothfuss, he wrote the Kingkiller Chronicles, The Name of the Wind, and one other book. Its main character is Quoth. Very famous two-book unfinished series. Right, the Kingkiller Chronicles is not finished. Now, there's lots of unfinished fantasy series, right? But the Kingkiller Chronicles is a famous unfinished series because it has been unfinished for 6 or 7 years, right? Like it's been unfinished for a long time, okay? And lots of people are like, "Hey, we're super dope. These two first novels were fantastic. Patrick Rothfuss, pen that third book. Finish out the series. We're ready for it, right?" And Patrick Rothfuss has said, "You know what? Rather than finishing your book, I'm going to go to 55 different conventions." And that's exactly what he did. He also worked on a Dungeons and Dragons, an official Dungeons and Dragons product, and he did some video game work, and he built a board game. Okay, so he traveled the convention circuit, started as a guest, a writing guest, right? And did some video game work, and all off of the success of The Name of the Wind, parlayed that into video game work, board game work, and Dungeons and Dragons official writer credit work, and just did these different projects, right? Now, and then never finished the series, right? Now, Patrick Rothfuss is actually considered by many people to be one of the best fantasy writers that is existent, modern, one of the best modern fantasy genre writers, right? And he is it's not even debatable. He is a tremendous fantasy writer. His the two books in the Kingkiller Chronicles were fantastic. They were really, really amazing, right? Now, it's the Martin Rothfuss start, okay? What's the Martin? Well, that's J.R.R. Martin, right? George R.R. Martin. And he wrote Game of Thrones, right? Game of Thrones is famously unfinished, right? I would actually posit that it is impossible for George R.R. Martin to actually finish the series. And the reason why is the book series was officially ended by the HBO Max series, right? So if George R.R. Martin delivers a finish to his book series, there's going to be a huge problem, right? It's going to do one of two things. It's just going to be a retelling of what was told on the show, and everybody's going to well, that was kind of a novelization of a show. Who wanted that, right? Or it will break from the canon of the show and then massively damage the legacy of a show that is inarguably the most epic fantasy television series that has ever existed. Nothing even comes close, okay? So either damages the legacy of GOAT, or he turns in a novelization. And people are going to be like, okay, I waited 8 years for that, right? So he's really up against the wall. But Martin is a massively successful fantasy genre writer, right? So if you are a fantasy genre writer out there, one of the things that you can do now, right, is write the start of a series, not finish the series, and get enough royalties from a well-written series start to fund an active lifestyle of doing whatever you want, which is exactly what Martin and Rothfuss have done. They have proven that within the fantasy genre, it is not necessary to finish series to be successful, right? And to have a very robust, well-paid lifestyle, right? That is truly unique. I don't think that's been done in any other genre. There's no other genre that rewards authors at a massive scale for not finishing series, right? So if you are starting a fantasy series, just understand you don't need to finish that book, to finish that series, in order to be an incredibly successful fantasy author, okay? And that there is this unique new opportunity within the fantasy genre to be a successful, well-respected fantasy author who starts series and doesn't end them, right? So within the fantasy genre, we can now have multiple data sets that show finishing series is absolutely not necessary for the success of the author, right? And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge this, because the Martin Rothfuss start, created by Patrick Rothfuss and George R.R. Martin, is really unprecedented in any other genre. I don't think there's any other genre that rewards authors for not finishing what they started, right? But the fantasy community does it, and they're doing it again and again and again and again. And I think this is absolutely going to be a thing going forward, that you will not be expected to finish series. If it's good enough, you can just write a few books in a series and then leave off, get onto the convention circuit, and move forward from there, right? So I think it's really, really fascinating. It really surprised me. I did not expect to see this, this outcome occur, but I really do think it is incredibly fascinating. All that's my opinion. What about you? What do you think of the new Martin Rothfuss start? Do you think it's worth current fantasy writers who are writing their first or second book to realize that they may want to make those books as good as they possibly can, and also acknowledge that there's absolutely no need to finish a series in order to be a successful fantasy author? I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.